case you didn't see it yet today, Javon Hagan was named MAC East Defensive Player of the Week, so that came out just about an hour ago. But Coach, do you want to give us a quick statement?
Yeah, congratulations to Javon. I think he's had a great year. He's not only been special to us in the secondary and can play either strong safety or free safety, which is remarkable for a young guy, freshman. But he's also done an exceptional job on special teams and has forced fumbles, has made interceptions. So he's kind of doing it all right now. He's gotten off to a great start. And obviously we need guys to rise up that are young guys in the secondary to to really help with a couple things. One is some guys are banged up at that spot, and then again we only had one returning guy with experience in the secondary, Torrin Davis. So his play has been special to us. We continue to win some categories. Field position again, the turnover ratio battle we won, the sack battle we won. So again, those three things mean a lot in terms of taking a step towards winning a football game. So we've continued to win those with consistency. Some things to work on. Obviously, I don't think that we are satisfied with our execution on either side of the ball. We need to get better. If we're going to continue to have success in the MAC, we've got to improve. Our guys are intent on that, and I think they are looking forward to it. Injury-wise, we've had our fair share of running backs banged up, of course, and Malik came back, got off to a really good start, and so he's questionable for the game. Looks like we'll have a shot at maybe getting Dorian back. Poppy, there's a chance, but that's still maybe listed as questionable right now. So, we kind of come and go with our backs. The move of Bo Hardy to running back this year from his safety spot was a needed move, and he's really responded very, very well, and really played an excellent football game for us. And so, we're facing Eastern Michigan. I think Chris has done a great job with those guys. You turn on the film, and they're a talented group, and they really play hard. They remind me of us in terms of guys running to the football. They're up front guys are physical, strong. They move well on both sides of the ball, and defensively they get a lot of guys around the ball, and that's one thing that I think they've done a great job of is forcing turnovers, and that's the way you do it, by having guys play at the level they play at and with that kind of energy.
Coach, you talk about Eastern Michigan. You have playing with a lot of energy, playing hard throughout the game, but a lot of teams have played you that way. How are you going to look to implicate that in practice this week, as especially you go through situational football like on Wednesdays? How are you going to look to get that in practice?
Well, we every week we have our ones go against ones in some of the teamwork, so that we run the opposing team's plays offensively for so many plays, then we run the opposing team's defenses for so many plays, and that's against our ones against ones, and our more productive players at this point are going against one another, so that you try to assimilate the speed. And other than that, playing hard and playing for 4 quarters is as much of a mindset as it is conditioning and just doing it. And I think our guys have the mindset to play that way every play. So there's not a lot of training that has to go into it. That training has taken place over their career here. If they're a young guy, they see what the older guys are doing and how they're doing it, and they kind of jump on board.
You mentioned about hoping to be in the position in these games to put teams away. And obviously it's better to do that when you're a 4-2 ball club, and hopefully you have those chances in the future. What kind of things can you do to try to get that done? I guess there are a lot of ways of doing it, but how do you want to go about it?
Well, we need to execute throughout the game. You know, we have periods where we're executing really well, and it shows. You know, we had a drive there in the third quarter, I believe it was, that you know, we ran the ball, and the execution was great. But then we have a tendency to hurt ourselves. You know, again, we jump back to 9 penalties, 4 on defense, 3 on offense, and 2 special teams penalties. If you have that number of penalties in a game, there's only so much separation you can do, because you allow their drives to be kept alive by some of those penalties, and you take yourself out of drives with some of those penalties. And so we've, over the course of the season, we've been pretty good at winning the possession time battle. You know, that's not something I really look at, because I think you can get a false reading on that. It's not really the number of plays that you run, it's what you do with the plays that you do run. And so, you know, we need to keep working on execution. You know, I thought Greg came back with a great game. He threw the ball well, but the things that are little things that maybe are not as noticeable, he slid in the pocket really well to give him some extra time on throws. He scrambled when he should have scrambled, and he took the best routes on those scrambles, which isn't always the case with quarterbacks. And so, you know, he was very productive on both ends of that. If he continues that, and then we're able to get things going with good execution up front and receivers and running backs, then we'll be able to put points on the board. Now, in saying that, you know, I think we played 2 really good defensive football teams, and I think the MAC is filled with good football teams, period. And so, you know, it's not easy to separate yourself once you get the lead, because you know they want to win the game too, and so teams we played play hard, and they're getting better and better each week, and so it's going to be a heck of a run going down the stretch for all the MAC teams, because you cannot step on the field without being ready to play your best. If that doesn't happen, you're vulnerable to defeat, period.
What's your operating procedure when someone gets one of those drive extending or drive killing penalties? How do you address it in the moment? Like on Saturday, Colin gets the penalty that extends the drive, or I think Casey got one. How do you address that with that player in the moment?
I
wait for and review.
Yeah, you know, I generally talk with a player that has a penalty that, you know, if you have a motion penalty, we move on, you know, and we'll address that in the meeting today when I'm up in front of everybody. We go over the penalties and how it affected the game. But during the game, there's so many things happening that, you know, you don't pull everybody aside. Obviously, the position coach will, if they're up in the booth, will get on the phone to the guy. The position coach on the sideline may mention something to him quickly. I'll visit with those to find out what exactly happened and to make sure that we're under control and it doesn't happen again. You know, kind of like Kylan's unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. Those are the kind that need to be addressed immediately. But some of the others, you know, you don't address right at the game time. You do it at halftime of a game, and you do it at the end of a game in the locker room, and then you do it on today, Monday, when we get back together. And you keep drilling it, and I think we've been improving. But this was a little bit of a setback in that area. I think sometimes when you have a team that plays really hard, you're going to be at times a little more vulnerable to a few more penalties. You look at the penalty category, and the teams that are at the top of the conference sometimes are the most penalized teams. So it doesn't, that stat doesn't go hand in hand with, hey, okay, now we reduced our penalties, we're a better football team. There's a lot of other things that gotta happen. But obviously, if you cover that base, then you're doing one extra thing to make yourself good. And so.
Is it sometimes when there's one of those big eye-catching penalties that, the fan wants to see a coach screaming in a guy's face on the sideline, but I guess what you're saying is with the next play thing, there's something always going on, you don't have time to sit there and chew a guy out for 10 minutes.
Yeah, no, and generally it doesn't do any good at that point in time, Now you gotta make it known that if it's a ridiculous penalty, that hey, it can't happen again, And but to extend a conversation with a player and be in his face a lot, most of them are down already because of it. Some of them may not even recognize what or felt that it shouldn't have been called, and so then you just kind of ignite things a little bit, and to me that doesn't make sense. You got a lot of time to address penalties before the next game. You do need to get in control of your football team if there are pushes and shovings going out there and battles going out there. So sometimes when that's happening, you address the individual, but you may even address the unit on the sideline, and you may address your whole football team during a timeout, the guys that are ready to go on the field, and then you go up and down the sideline, because that stuff will beat you in an instant, and when your players get out of control. So those kind of things you need to work on right at the moment.
Coach, is there any difficulty with these kind of crossover games in the MAC? Do you have to prepare for them any differently than you would a MAC East team?
Not really. They all count towards your success or failure in MAC play. Obviously, you if you beat everybody in your division, you got a leg up. But you can't fall apart in your non-conference games and think you automatically are going to win your division. It doesn't work that way. So they're all important games. You've got to prepare for them all the same. Once you start preparing a little differently for a team than another team, your players feel it, they see it, they hear it, they understand it, and that's not good. And so you prepare the same way for everybody you play.
Kind of building off of that, what are you telling the guys this week to avoid a letdown and just beat Bowling Green, the team that a lot of people predicted to win the MAC East, but now you're going into that, the third week of MAC play. What are you telling your guys just to try and keep that intensity level
It's
up?
pretty easy. All you got to do is turn on film, and they've already been on their own watching some film. Most of the guys will get started. We'll finish up our game today since we don't bring them in at all on Sundays. And so we'll finish up our game today. So they'll start seeing film on their own again tonight, and then tomorrow a ton, and the next day a ton, and the next day a ton. It's pretty easy to show your team with film what they're going up against, And this is a good football team. They've done a great job there with this team, and they're very strong and physical up front on both sides of the ball. And again, we pretty much said the same thing about Bowling Green, which is true. Bowling Green had 4 of their 5 offensive linemen come back that have won national or not have won conference championships the last couple years, and so they're good up front. There's no question about it. They just haven't maybe put everything together yet, but we're still working with our team trying to put everything together yet. So, you don't have to. Our older guys, and that's where great leadership comes into play. Our older guys know what MAC plays about. They know you've got to prepare and you've got to play your best, or you're probably not going to win. It's plain and simple every week. And so I think the younger guys kind of understand that. I'm up in front of them every day at practice. I speak to them every day as a team, reminding them of what it's about. I've got a great deal of experience in the game, and I know that you're vulnerable every week. I don't care who you are. You're vulnerable every week. And and you just don't want to have that vulnerability be there. So in order to try to not have it show, you prepare hard for every game.
What's the secret to being on the good side of turnover ratio? That's one of the major things you guys have done exceptionally well this year, plus 10. Besides the obvious, not turning the ball over and creating turnovers, what kinds of factors go into a team being really good in that regard?
You usually get what you emphasize, and we emphasize great ball protection. We emphasize making good decisions from the quarterback position, and there are times we talk to the whole team about how to carry a football, because it's not just your running backs or quarterbacks that are doing it. Your receivers are catching balls and are vulnerable to turnovers. Your punt return guy, he could be a defensive guy. Your kickoff return guys, defensive lineman scooping up a fumble is vulnerable to a turnover when he's carrying the ball. Defensive back when he intercepts. So everybody on the team has to be aware of what is expected of them if by chance they get the ball in their hands. And so we drill good ball technique, and there's 5 phases to that, but we drill good ball technique, and we have drills almost every day on taking care of the ball. So it's kind of ingrained in them, and you're still, if you're not careful and if you don't continue to do it, and sometimes it can get monotonous doing the same drills, but you got to do it. You got to give players constant reminder of what's important in the game. And so we don't try to look to do a lot of different drills necessarily to keep the players from getting bored. I don't mind them getting bored to death. As long as the drill is designed to accomplish something, we want to do it, and we want to do it over and over again. And then it's good coaching. Coach Alvin does a great job with the backs, and he spreads that to the receivers, and even we've had him talk to the whole team at times on ball protection at the beginning of the year. So Coach Izzy, in terms of the quarterback play, just making good decisions, you've got to drill that every day. You do it on film, you do it in practice, and if you're lucky, you have pretty good technique and you make pretty good decisions, and the ball isn't being turned over a ton.
And how do you create them? Is that, again, more work on technique? See the rip drill you guys do all the time?
Yeah. There's a lot of technique to it, and a lot of repetition of coaching it. We have drills that they work on defensively every day in terms of getting the ball loose. Then it's a matter of getting guys flying to the ball, playing hard. If you're playing hard, you're going to get, Jimmy calls them tips and overthrows. If you're a backside safety and the ball's thrown up the opposite hash to a receiver, and you're jogging over to it, and that ball gets bad and it's in the air and you don't quite get there, there's a big difference than you racing to get there, to be ready to be the guy that gets the bobbled ball, or if somebody lets the ball on the ground, you're the guy that's going to be in position to get it. So that is coached and drilled, and our coaches do a really good job of it.
Also, you have some versatile players on defense. Javon, he can play free safety and strong. But Kylan, how are you looking to use him since Will is taking more reps at running back?
Well, that Kylan will be able to get in the rotation mix there, and he's capable of doing both because he's physical enough to be the support guy, and then he's good enough to line up on a wide out in the slot, and cover him, and so, that if you look at sometimes our safeties are getting 70 snaps a game. You look at Torn and the number of snaps he gets. There for a while he wasn't off the field. Now we're able with the rotation to get those guys less snaps, and that gives them a chance to get from one game to the next, to the next, to the next with less chance of injury, and they're able to play with a ton of energy when they're on the field. It's kind of like the rotation we got set up now with our defensive linemen. They're all getting snaps, and we're able to keep pretty fresh guys on the field. That's how Kylan fits in there. And then he's a kickoff return guy. This week, he's catching punts. He's a punt return guy. He can be used on punt coverage teams, and so a guy like that will get plenty of snaps. Guy with his ability.
He's a lack of a better word, a nickel guy on your third down looks too. So there'll be times when all three of those guys are on the field.
It could be, but that all depends on depth and as to whether or not you're in a nickel defense very often.
Any questions, guys?
Coach, I'm going to veer a little bit off topic real quick, so I apologize for that. But Bleacher Report recently did a study about how the political climate right now is affecting NFL locker rooms. As coaches, do you guys have certain policies in place to encourage or discourage your players from how they talk about that stuff, not just with each other, but on social media and around that sort of thing as well?
Mm-hmm. We've had I've had talks with our team this past week about it. In fact, probably 3 or 4 times during the course of the week I was in front of the teams, and we had our team members get together and talk some things through. So, I think awareness is a good thing, and so we're open to what our players' thoughts and feelings, and I think our players know that. Now could somebody come out and surprise you, and Kaepernick was kind of an individual awareness situation. Michigan State, where their whole team, I think, joined arms. That's kind of a team awareness situation. So make our players aware of that it can be individual, it can be so many members of a team, it can be a whole team. One thing that we do ask of you is if you're going to have, if you're going to be in a situation where you're going to make people aware of something, or if you're going to stand up against something, know what you're doing. Know why you're doing it. Don't just do something and then have the press come up to you and say, well, what's going on here? What was the cause of that action? Well, let me think. Know what you're going to be doing. And then, if you're going to be doing it as a team, that's up to you. If you're going to be doing it as a group of players, that's up to you. If you're going to be doing it as an individual, that's up to you. I don't think anybody likes to be surprised. Obviously, I would appreciate it if a player would say, Coach, I plan on doing this. I got strong feelings. He doesn't have to, but obviously it helps me, to know why he's doing what he's doing, But so we've had several discussions this past week on. I think our players are in the know in terms of that. No one here in this program is going to hold anything against them for awareness. Awareness is good. Our whole team was involved in awareness for childhood cancer. Pediatric cancer, the Go Gold campaign. That's something where you're just trying to make people aware of something, and so you may have that in this day and age go on at any time, in any direction. So, and obviously there's a platform here for players around the country to do that, and some have done it, and some will continue to do some.
What do you think the role is that athletes should have in like you said, like social awareness and those kinds of things, not just here, but I guess around the country in college sports? And do you think the expectation for them should be a little bit different than it might be for a pro?
I don't know that I feel that's the case. You know, players have strong feelings, just like every human being has strong feelings, you know. And so sometimes they do want to express those feelings if they feel like a stance needs to be taken, or, you know, in the case of what we did with Go Gold, you know. I mean, everybody jumped on that immediately. They couldn't wait to help with that, you know. And so I think in general, people want to try to do the right thing and try to make it a situation where they are making people aware of something that they feel is maybe not right, maybe an injustice. I don't know, but they want to acknowledge things, that they got feelings, and they sometimes want to put that out there.